Hey guys, welcome back to Weekenders on the Water. Today we're here at home and today we are going to be recapping our Bimini trip where we took our 2 jet skis from Miami to Bimini Bahamas. It was an amazing trip and today we want to cover the most asked questions about that trip. So if you're preparing for your Bimini run and you want to know what you need to know, then you're in the right place. So make sure you stick around, check it out, hit that subscribe button and let's go.
Let's go. So how this is going to work is I'm going to ask the questions and Lewis is going to answer the questions and then I'm going to give you guys the real answer because there's a Lewis answer, then there's the Christy answer.
Oh, is that so?
And that's so. Good times. So the first question on the list is why? Why do we do this?
Why did we go to the Bahamas?
Yeah. On 2 glorified go-karts.
Because it's there.
Because we could.
Yeah, it's a bucket list trip. This is an amazing ride.
Yeah.
I think if you've been riding jet skis for any decent amount of time, particularly here in Florida, you constantly hear about this sort of thing, and just to know that it's even possible, it just sounds amazing. Like it's just an adventure, the trip of a lifetime. So I wanted to do it just for the adventure aspect of it. I was a little bit more risk averse to this because you're literally losing sight of Miami and you don't see Bimini for about 20 minutes. All that being said, it was definitely an exciting thing to do. Would I do it again? Knowing what I know now, yes. But in the moment, I was a little sketched out. So the next question we got is what kind of jet skis make it to the Bahamas? Yeah, so we ride Sea-Doos. I have a Sea-Doo GTI SE 170. It's a 2021 model, and Christine rides a Sea-Doo GTI SE 130. It's a 2017 model. Although for this trip, we actually switched it up.
Yeah.
She rode my ski, I rode her ski. And that's just because the newer models are a little bit easier to hold on to, and I wanted to make sure she had as much grip as possible getting across the ocean there.
Me. Most days.
But kind of a follow-up to that, we commonly get asked, like, what type of ski would we recommend for this sort of trip? Obviously, legal disclaimer, we don't recommend you do anything that you see on this channel. But
wait a second. You probably want to say something like, we recommend that you get your jet ski checked out by a mechanic prior to going. Because we literally want people to do the things that we're doing.
Okay, well, I don't want anybody to go and then die.
So we highly recommend that if you are electing to go to the Bahamas on your jet ski, that you feel safe and confident on your ski. Your ski is seaworthy. It's not, hodgepodge together with duct tape, dreams and a hope, right? So, just be smart about it, make good choices, and just make sure that your Sea-Doo, your jet ski is water worthy and it's able to sustain that kind of a trip.
Yeah. And that being said, I would not recommend one of the Rec Light models.
Right, yeah.
I definitely would want to go with a full-size ski on this. Probably,
at least.
Yeah, so I would not personally travel across on a Spark or a Yamaha EX or with the smaller Kawasaki, the 160. I definitely would go with a full-size ski for this trip.
Yeah, something that can take waves, something that you're going to be able to hold on to for a very long period of time. Something that is going to be a little bit more stable, out in the middle of the Gulf Stream, something that's going to float and something that's going to get you there safely, of course, because that's the most important thing. Okay. And how many hours were on our jet skis whenever because people were asking that, how new is your ski? How many hours is on your ski?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, the ski that you ride is a little bit older, being a 2017. This is currently 2024.
Yeah.
So that was a 7-year-old ski. We bought it used and it had very little hours when we were doing it. When we made the trip, your ski had about 140 hours on it. Yeah. And my ski had about 120 hours on it.
Yeah. And Lewis is meticulous about doing our maintenance, making sure that everything is clean, safe, locked, secured, ready to go. And we also, prior to going on this trip, took both of our skis to a mechanic just to do it once over to make sure everything was good. And it was. The next question we got a lot from not only folks who were, leaving comments on, on our YouTube channel, but also folks that we were talking about this in passing, right? Is, do you have insurance? And what does insurance look like? Not only health insurance, but also like insurance on the jet ski. Yeah,
so health insurance is pretty simple. We basically just have our standard health insurance. It does cover out of network, but not as good. And,
international is always something else.
But you can get travel insurance if you wish, and you can even get trip insurance as well. But specifically for the jet ski insurance, there was a lot of discussion in this with the group chat before we went, And general consensus is nobody really seemed to find any insurance that would cover a jet ski in a foreign country. So we personally are insured with Progressive. They cover us for up to 75 miles outside of the United States. And once we enter Bahamian waters, we're not covered anymore. So if our jet skis were to sink in the Bahamas, if they were to get stolen in the Bahamas, we would be out of luck.
But even though the Bahamas are more than 75 miles, or they're less than 75 miles from the Gulf, from the coast, because we're in another country's water, it doesn't matter.
75 miles, you know, either U.S. waters or international waters does not cover foreign country waters.
Good to know.
Yeah, so we were uninsured for those couple days while we were in the Bahamas, and that's, fortunately, if you want to do a trip like this, it's just kind of the risk you got to take.
So next up, can you rent jet skis to do this?
All right, and that is an absolute hard no.
Hard pass.
Plenty of people claim that they know someone that will let them rent a ski. There's just no way. When you start to think about the logistics of a trip like this, I mentioned the insurance alone. We can't get personal insurance that'll cover us, let alone insurance that will cover a rental ski in a foreign country.
Right. What kind of business insurance is actually going to allow that model too? It's crazy.
And then you think about the type of people that generally rent jet skis. You know, they're generally new to the sport.
Yeah.
They don't always know how to handle them very well. Granted, I mean, some of you guys maybe own skis and you're just traveling across country and you want to rent one. But generally, the average jet ski renter doesn't know how to handle it in big waves, doesn't know how to dock up to to a dock, and there's just so much that goes into it. How to stay out of the weeds and not get something sucked up your impeller.
Right.
You know, I can't think of any ski company that's going to rent, because if something goes wrong, the liabilities on this are so bad. You know, talk about the liabilities of someone getting injured, of someone possibly dying, of the jet ski being damaged or sinking. There's so much that could go wrong that there's no one that will rent a jet ski for you to take to the Bahamas. If you do know about it and you want to put it in the link description below and tell me I'm wrong, please go ahead.
Yeah.
But I personally I can't imagine anyone that would, and I've not come across that.
Yeah. We do not recommend this ride for somebody who is new to jet skiing. Period. It is a long ride. It can be a hard ride. It can be a choppy ride, but also can be a great ride, right? You have to go in with the right mindset. I don't think Christine and Lewis, 3-4 years ago when we first got jet skis, would have done this in the first couple weeks of us having them, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, unless you have spent time on the back of that jet ski, and I'm talking hours, I'm talking hundreds of hours on the back of a jet ski, would not recommend this being your first foray into jet skiing.
Absolutely.
So this is a question we've probably gotten more than any of the others, and it's how much gas did we take and how much gas did we use?
Yeah. So our jet skis being the older GTIs, I think the new 2024 GTIs do have full size tanks, but ours unfortunately are limited to 16-gallon tanks, which is another reason why I would recommend at least a full-size ski.
Yeah.
And that 16 gallons was a little bit iffy. But we used 11 gallons to get there, traveling at about 20 miles an hour, and it took us 3.5 hours to get there. That was a bit slow, but it was rough conditions, and we went with a large group. On the way coming back, we used about 13 gallons, traveling about 30 miles an hour, so it was better conditions there, but we did use more gas. And like I mentioned, if we have a 16-gallon tank, we definitely want to make sure that we don't run out, so that's why we brought an extra 10 gallons each. So we had another 10 gallons to strap to each jet ski, so we had another 20 gallons total available to us. And really that would be like worst case scenario, we show up to the Bahamas and something catastrophically goes wrong, we need to turn around right away and go back without refueling. We could possibly do that.
Yeah. And that was one of our contingency plans, right? We always wanted to make sure we had enough gas to get out of the Bahamas had there been a catastrophe of some sort. We had to get home right away, or one of us got sick, or who knows, right? Whatever that contingency plan was. And again, another reason why I wouldn't recommend getting on a Spark or one of the smaller jet skis, because you don't have as much space to be able to bring that fuel with you.
Right. Fuel was definitely a concern. So we showed up that first day and there was no gas to be had on the island. So luckily we had that extra 10 gallons because we were able to refuel our jet skis and still run around most of the next day before we needed gas.
Right.
If you didn't have that, and again, if you had to go back that same day, you show up on like I say, if you're doing a day trip and you show up on a day that they don't have gas, you're going to be staying.
It's making it a night trip.
Yeah. So definitely recommend bringing extra gas. We went with Bahamas Challenge Facebook group. They recommend at least 5 gallons a piece. I'm really glad that we brought the 10 gallons. I think it was worth it.
Yeah.
And gas over there is pretty expensive.
Right. And we didn't have the range anxiety. You know, sometimes when you go out and you can't find a marina, or, you know, you only have 5 gallons and your eco light is flashing or whatever, you know, it's just nice to know that you can almost fill up your ski, you know, to being fully full.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. And gas was $6.50 a gallon when we bought over there too.
Right. Almost double what we pay here in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, we had coupons and everything. We paid $2.50 a gallon.
Kroger fuel points.
Yeah. We paid. Yeah. So we took our $2.50 a gallon gas to the Bahamas and used all that.
Yeah. So the next question we got asked a few times was, where do we park whenever we got to Miami? Where did we stay? Where did we leave the truck, the trailer, and where did we launch from?
So as I mentioned, we're part of that Bahamas Challenge Facebook group. So the night before, the admins there had actually set up a hotel rate, a group rate at the Marriott in Fort Lauderdale near the airport. So we stayed there overnight. But honestly, I was up and ready to go like 1:45. So I barely got any sleep at all. And if it wasn't for it being 1,000,000 degrees outside, I probably would have just slept in the truck at the boat ramp. But anyways, we stayed in Fort Lauderdale the night before. We drove down to the boat ramp early morning, like 2 a.m. And the boat ramp was at Key Biscayne. Lots of ramps, plenty of parking. They allow overnight parking. You pay for it with an app on your phone. I forget exactly how much it costs, but I'll cover that in the next video, because the next video we're going to do a cost breakdown of everything. But yeah, basically we just left our truck and our trailer in the Key Biscayne parking lot overnight, and we're able to prepay for several days. And when we got back, there was no issues, nothing. No one had messed with our truck or our trailer. Of course, always lock those things up overnight. So you have a hitch lock and a coupler lock, you know, on the trailer, so that way it's harder for somebody to take it. But if anybody wants to take your stuff, you know, a lock's not really going to stop them. But we had no issues.
There are multiple points to launch from in Miami. I think the group chose Key Biscayne because of just how much parking there is there. And there's multiple boat ramps, right? Now, I'm sure you've seen other YouTubers that are, you know, a little bit more inland or a little bit more, you know, anywhere else. Just be mindful of the boating laws in Florida related to PWCs, because there are some places in Florida that do not allow jet skis at all. So just be mindful of that whenever you are making your float plan and, you know, your choices regarding how you plan to get to the Bahamas. Yeah,
and that actually reminds me, because one of my questions before we went was, I'd heard, so Biscayne Bay does not allow PWCs.
Correct.
And I was kind of concerned, are we actually even going to be allowed to launch from Key Biscayne? And yeah, actually we can. You can launch from Key Biscayne as long as you go pretty much right out the inlet there and out into the ocean. You just can't go south of Key Biscayne.
Yeah. The next question we got a lot was, what happens if somebody breaks down on the ride over to Bimini? And then what happens if you break down while you're at Bimini?
We got very lucky that even with 100 jet skis, that nobody broke down during the ride. Now,
some people turned around.
Right. If this does happen, there wasn't really an official policy with this group. I hadn't seen one thing or another. I have heard from other groups, particularly smaller groups, that if that happens, that they may just let the skis go, which again would be another issue. This group,
make good choices, y'all. Just make good choices.
Right. So if the ski starts to sink, they let it sink, kind of thing. With this being a larger group, there were a number of people that seemed, you know, helpful and would probably pitch in. And we mentioned that on the ride back, I was a little concerned that maybe the one I was riding might sink, and we were kind of prepared as best we could with a ditch bag and with
minimal things on that ski.
Right, rope already attached to the bow. A small bag of tools at the ready, exactly what I would need in that situation. Clamp. All that stuff, we were ready to go, that if I had to, I could hook it up quickly to the other ski and start dragging it. And I get the sense from other people on the trip that we probably would get some help there and pulling it back. I do know that on the way coming back, as I mentioned, there was another group that left like a day or two before us. And in that case, I heard that the switch that went over with us actually towed a jet ski back. So they made it the whole way. So that guy is my hero.
He's a rock star.
So
right.
good on him. But as far as if someone broke down on the island, that actually happened to a couple of folks as well. Like I mentioned, one ski was left there and had to be shipped back. So that's an option. It's pretty pricey option. But another ski that sank in Bimini, the guy ended up having to stay there for a little bit while longer, and maybe making a couple trips back and forth in order to, he did the repairs to that ski himself until he was able to get that jet ski up and running and then drive it back a week or two later.
Oh my gosh,
so
I can imagine.
Yeah, so again, that's kind of some of the things that you're kind of thinking about when you're doing this trip, and what kind of maybe can lead to some of those stress levels. Fingers crossed, he had no issues, and I'm really glad ours went pretty smooth.
And that just goes to show that, like, I really recommend that, you should know the ski that you're on and its quirks and its hiccups and its bumps and its bruises prior to going to Bimini. I would not recommend this as a, hey, I have 4 hours on my ski, we're going to go to Bimini. Like, it needs to be like battle tested before you're making this track 100%.
Yeah, well, even those brand new skis.
One of them sunk. Yeah.
Well, that one was a Kawasaki, was fairly new. There was a Sea-Doo that had an issue. That's kind of been unfortunately, a common theme lately with some of the newer Sea-Doos, that some of the hoses aren't fully attached there, and that they're letting water into the hull through some of the hoses, through some of the cooling hoses. So yeah, I would not recommend a brand new ski. Somewhere between that 50 to 100 hours, 50 to 200 hours is probably a good.
Providing that you've done your maintenance, providing that you checked the oil, providing that you've lubed it a few times.
Right.
It's not just, hey, this has been sitting outside for 5 years, and I'm gonna hop on and take it to Bimini.
Yeah, and even one of our skis, as we mentioned, it was taking on some water. And like I said, I think that was because of that flush port valve.
Yeah. And we'll link that video down below where Lewis covers all that for you guys. Sorry.
Right. So I mentioned that I think it was that flush port valve, and I think it's probably been leaking for a long time, and we just never noticed it until you leave it tied up at a dock overnight, 12 hours, 18 hours at a time. Now that little leak becomes a couple gallons in your hull. So I don't know how you can really test that one without having a place on the water yourself.
Right.
Maybe you could go overnight camping. But we do definitely recommend that you do a shakedown run of all your equipment, all your gear before you go. Do a 60 mile, 80 mile, 100 mile trip with everything on there, and so that we know. Because when you get all the extra weight on the back of the ski too, all that
it handles differently.
It's going to handle differently, and it's going to be harder to climb up on it in deep water. So you need to test all these things and make sure that you know how all this is going to work.
Yeah, so I know for some of us, we carry bare minimum whenever we go, right? So I'm talking about like on our daily rides, right? So usually we're not carrying fuel with us. Usually our hulls aren't packed to the brim with camera equipment and passports and clothes and towels and tools and water and snacks and all this other stuff, right? So it's just us, a towel and our water, right? So definitely recommend doing a shakedown run and making sure that you know what to do if something happens. Okay, my sea is sinking. I'm in the Gulf in the shipping lane. What am I going to do? I've got 30 gallons of fuel on the back of my jet ski. How do I get up onto my ski if I fall off? Right? Those are all things you have to think about and prepare for prior to just loading up and going.
If the thing capsizes, how do you flip it back over?
With 30 gallons of fuel attached to the back of it,
So knowing that procedure as well.
Right. So the next question we got a lot is, oh my gosh, you went to the Bahamas. How did you get into the country? Well, you show up and you go to immigration office, right? So we docked our skis, took a cab immediately over to the airport because we stayed on the South Island, and went through customs and immigration in a current total of like 20 minutes.
Yeah, so there are 3 different places where you can go through customs in Bimini. One is the South Island at the airport. There's 2 on the North Island. One was Big Game, and I don't recall the other place.
I don't either.
But yeah, basically on the South Island, obviously you can't take your jet ski directly to the airport, so we docked at our marina. From there we took a cab. But yeah, so we went to customs. We had already filled out some of our paperwork before we got there. I kind of considered at one point maybe doing a separate video on what you need. But in
case it changes,
that could always be changing, And again, I don't want to ever be giving out legal advice, so I generally try to answer every question that we get on this channel. But I probably will not be doing a good job of answering legal questions around customs. But anyways,
we're not immigration experts,
right? We showed up and we went through customs. They didn't, request to see our jet skis or anything like that. That was a couple miles away. It's just as if you'd showed up on a yacht or if you flew your own plane over there. They kind of ask you some general sort of questions.
Yeah, what did you bring in?
Right.
You know, how long are you going to stay here? What's the make and model of your ski? You know.
Yeah. Did you captain it yourself? You know, we had to pay for a cruising permit, which was good for 90 days, and that we had to have one of those for each vessel. So because even though these are only 11-foot jet skis, we had to have one for each. You couldn't get by with just with one for both. You can go to the Bahamas Customs tourist website and you can fill out the forms there and pay your fees and everything before you go, and that kind of really helps make it quicker.
Yeah. Whenever we got to the Bahamas, you have to fly a quarantine flag. So make sure you have your quarantine flag with you and you know how to attach it to the back of your ski. We practiced that a couple times, right? And link down below where I totally tuned out everything Lewis was telling me, but somehow I still nailed it. But once you get there, do not dawdle, right? Getting to the immigration office, right? Like they work 9 to 5, right? And we have heard of other YouTubers going to the Bahamas and they say, oh, I got here yesterday, but they didn't check into the immigration office, and then there was a fine levied with that, right? So get there at a decent time, make sure the office is open, fly your quarantine flag, and go to immigration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Them's the rules.
Yeah, and you do have to bring your passport too. So I don't think the Bahamas let you in with just a birth certificate, but
so I know like some cruise ships you can cruise with a birth certificate, but I don't know how that works for showing up on on like something that's like not Royal Caribbean. I don't know how that works.
I know it's a bit of a pain. There's a long wait to get a passport. It's it's costly, but it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah.
And
you get a stamp.
Right. It's just gonna be more and more. You're gonna need a passport no matter what. So I just recommend just go ahead and get your passport. Make it a lot easier.
No, we did not have to stamp out of the country. So we only had to visit the immigration office once. So again, whenever you are watching this in the future, right? We're filming this in summer 2024. We went in June 2024. We did not have to stamp out of the Bahamas. We only had to be stamped in. So at that point in time, we didn't have to come back. We only had to go to the immigration office once. Right.
And then as far as the return trip back to the U.S., so as loose as that kind of sounds getting into the Bahamas, the return trip back to the U.S.
unhinged.
I was honestly quite shocked.
Yeah.
So in order to get
it's an app, right?
in order to get back into the U.S., there's an app on your phone. It's the CBP Roam, the Custom and Borders Protection Roam app. You download that. We filled out our known traveler information a couple days beforehand. So they already had all of our information. We uploaded pictures of our passports. And then when we returned back to the U.S., we just basically pushed a button on our phone and said, we're back. That's reviewed by a Customs Border agent or protection agent. And they'll determine if you need to do anything further. Maybe you might have to report to a local customs office. But in our case, we didn't. We got a notification about 30 minutes later that we were all clear, hopped in the truck and left. So pretty simple.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah.
No one looked at our boat. No one looked at anything we brought. It was just
no
crazy.
one confirmed that we actually came or went or anything.
It was nuts. But science, man, right?
Science.
Another question we got a lot from our friends and family was, can you drink the water in the Bahamas? And I'm thinking to myself, if we also have to pack gas and cases of water, we might as well not even go, because there's no way we're going to be able to get all that on the ski.
All right.
But good news is you can drink the water. It's totally safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So we drank the water right out of the fridge. So the fridge had like a little filter on it, I'm sure. But we're drinking water, drinking ice all week long. We had no issues with that at all. My understanding is that all the water in the Bahamas is created using desalination processes. So it's about as clean as it can possibly get. We saw the water plant when we were in Bimini. It didn't look like they actually had a water desalination plant there. So my understanding is they probably do the water desalination over in like Nassau and then ship it in.
Or Freeport.
Or or wherever, one of the larger islands. Then they just shipped it over, and it was big water containers. But regardless of all that, it was safe. We didn't have any issues, and going back, I definitely would drink the water. Yeah,
no concerns. So another question that we got a lot was, well, do you have any tips? Is there anything extra we should know about or do for Bimini? And most importantly, how much did it cost?
And that is a big question. So we'll actually cover that in our next video. So make sure that you subscribe, because you don't want to miss out on that. So in the next video, we'll break down the cost of everything, what it costs to do this trip, as well as any lessons learned, anything that we would do differently. All that words of advice and that wisdom will be in the next video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And as far as the price to get to Bimini, it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No.
That's going to do it for us today, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Really help us out. Let us know in the comments below if there's any other questions that you have. We'll do our best to try to answer as many of those as possible. And with that being said, we're out of here, and we'll see you next weekend.
Bye. I'm not obstructed now.
Don't want to obstruct your view.
No, because I can't see. I hardly can see anything.
How pretty you are.
Babe, pineapple. You wore that shirt 2 videos ago.
Yeah, on the other channel.
Oh. I don't have my Bimini shirt on.
Well.
I don't even know where it is.
But once we enter Bahamian waters, but I can put an end to that real quick. Do what's legal, obviously.
That didn't sound sketch at all.
Yeah.
Did you have good yums? Yeah. Oh God. Okay. Now I know why you're a little bit of a nervous Nelson.
Yeah, you wonder why I'm so stressed out.
I don't know. Louis had a good time, you guys. Okay. So we talked.
One of us was prepared.
God.
All right.